I wanted to take this time, Oliver, and welcome you to Aaron's Opinion, and say that I forget who it was who wanted me to connect with you, but I'm very pleased that we've connected today. My first question, as I ask any other guest or all guests from around the world, who is Oliver Wynn?
Hey Aaron, it's nice to meet you. My name's Oliver Wynn, yes. I think it was Miriam.
Could have been.
Miriam
It was either
Khalifa.
Mariam Karfiya or Radwan Mednini, but either one of them suggest. I forget who it was who suggested this, but yes,
Okay. I don't know the other one, so
it
it
must be
must be
Mariam
Miriam.
Karfiya. Mm-hmm. Yes.
It must be Miriam Khalifa, yes. My name's Oliver, yes. I'm 23 years old. I'll actually be 24, I think, in a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
But I am from California, born and raised. And that's in Oxnard, actually, which is a little bit north of Los Angeles.
Okay.
And yeah, so right now I am in Tunisia and I'm teaching English communications. And I've been here for about 2 months now.
So, as you know, the majority of my guests are blind, like me. But of course, sighted people like you are always welcome. I've interviewed a lot of sighted people around the world. So, you aren't blind. You don't have a disability and you started out in California. So, what made you want to just totally change your life and come to Tunisia?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. To be honest, I have been living at the same place my whole life, so I've always lived in Oxnard. I've gone to college and university locally around where I lived. So really, I just wanted to get a change of scenery. I wanted
Right.
to get out somewhere and, yeah, just live in a different place, some place that I maybe don't understand, but I could learn to appreciate or see the way other people live.
That's a really important point, and that's why I've done a lot of traveling around the world myself to have a perspective on how others view life and basically how others go about living. It's certainly interesting. So then in the end, how and why did you choose Tunisia?
To be honest, I was planning on going to Spain originally. And what happened was this opportunity kind of just presented itself to me. My mom, who's a professor, she was somehow in contact with the center, the guy that runs the center that I'm working at now, Richard Howard. And he was just looking for a position for someone to come from the United States to work there. It kind of
Okay.
just seemed, yeah, it kind of just fell into place. So I decided, no, may as well go there.
Okay. Okay, very good. Very good. So now are you living in Tunis?
I don't live in Tunis, no. I live 3 hours about by car south of Tunis. It's in the second largest city in Tunisia. It's called Sfax.
Sfax? Mm-hmm.
Sfax, yeah, Sfax. And
Yes.
it's a city of about, from what I understand, it's about 1 million people. And it's very like a university and industry city, industrial.
Right, right. It's actually the best city to live in Tunisia. It's where everyone wants to be because there's jobs, there's universities. It's a very, very famous city, very historic place. Yes, definitely. And Sfax has always had universities. So that's really good. So my academics are in the field of international relations, and I do speak French. I'm a French speaker. And probably what happened is because of my blindness, Oliver, I wasn't able to get into jobs overseas. The blindness factor and just sort of dealing with those types of things, it just wasn't possible for me really. But I do teach English online. And I've been doing that for 6 years, and then I've been podcasting seriously for about three. 2 or 3 years. So what is your educational background? And you say that you're teaching a course in English communication. So exactly who are your students and like how like what is the course?
That's a good question. Yeah. So my background isn't really in teaching very much. I have in the past, my teaching sort of began when I did math tutoring. I was volunteering as a math tutor when I was maybe, I don't know, maybe 14 or so. And then I worked at a tutoring center at my college and led some study groups. And there was a job position where I was attached to a calculus class, I think it was, and I would host the study sessions, study groups for them. And then I've done a little bit of substitute teaching as well. I have a substitute teaching credential in California as well. But my degree isn't in teaching, it's in communication. So I pretty much, for this class that I'm doing in Tunisia, I took the stuff I learned in university pretty much in my classes, and I put them to use in team building activities. It's kind of like a business class as well. So teaching how to interview, especially in the English language, and doing mock professional setting, like meetings, different things like that, debates, stuff like that.
Right, right. And I think that's really, really valuable for Tunisian people because, as I said, I mean, actually, I have been to Africa before. I've been to Swaziland. And if you get the chance, you should definitely go down there. It's definitely worth it. But one thing that is true is that the rest of the world doesn't really understand the expectations that we as Americans have in the business world. There's the American way of doing things, and then the rest of the world is sort of the rest of the world. So, what have you found to be, some of the key challenges and key differences that you're noticing when you go to set up these mock interviews and mock business settings for these Tunisian students?
Hmm. I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily in the business world aspect of things that I've noticed very different things. I think it's more in like the political stances that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I guess related to the debate topics. One thing that stood out to me was I was going over different debate topics with my students, and one of the ones that came up that I thought they might like to do was a debate on the death penalty.
Oh boy.
But so I
Oh boy.
asked all my students like, so are you like pro or for, like pro or against, would you guys like maybe be split on this to debate it? But all of them were pro death penalty. All of them were pro death penalty, which was
That
really
doesn't
surprising
it
to
doesn't
me.
surprise me at all. In that part of the because that part of the world where you are now doesn't have patience or tolerance. They don't tolerate behavior problems in that part of the world. So that doesn't surprise me at all. That there would be so much of a strong support for that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was crazy. But the thing is, when I looked it up later, I don't think in Tunisia there has been a execution since 1993 or so. So I don't, I guess people support it, but it's not happening. So I'm not really sure where the connection or disconnect is there.
Yeah, I don't know. That could be a lot of different things. I mean, I don't know. I mean, nowadays in the states, we're trying to steer away from capital punishment. It's always a big drama, as you know. So,
Yeah.
but that doesn't surprise me. So, I mean, the other thing too is, I mean, you're teaching these students in English, but how's your Arabic? How's your French? Are you confident in French or Arabic?
Uh, you know what? Actually, I've been practicing. So it's a different form of Arabic than like regular Arabic here. I mean, it's called Tunisian Arabic, I guess.
Yeah.
And what they say is that if you learn Tunisian Arabic and then you go to an Arabic speaking country that's not Tunisia, right? They wouldn't be able to understand you what you're saying, actually. So they understand regular Arabic here because that's what they learn in school, but the dialect here, I guess, is very different. But what I've done to learn it so far is I've been having a notebook and I go get coffee almost every night with some friends. And then I'll be like learning new words. So I write them down and the pronunciation, and all that. And I've been learning how to read Arabic script as well. So it's been fun so far.
Good, good. Yeah, some Tunisians prefer French, others Arabic. It just depends. Usually, the older people will speak French, and the younger people will speak Arabic. Usually. And so, what can you tell us about living in Sfax? What are the living arrangements, the accommodations? What have you noticed?
It's pretty interesting here. So one thing that's been going on since I came here to Sfax is I think maybe 1 or 2 weeks after I got here, the garbage collection, there has been some sort of strike or some sort of issues with garbage collection. So uh, over maybe the past month and a half, and I think maybe in the last week or two now. So it's probably been about a month and a half since this issue started, and maybe in the last week or two, they've been collecting it a little bit, but there's just been piles of garbage in front of our house, in the streets, like at every corner. There's a large pile of garbage around the garbage bin, and then sometimes when I go get coffee at night, you'll see just piles of trash getting burned, and it doesn't smell very nice. So that's one thing.
That does not surprise me. The infrastructure in the country is very, very poor, and both my acquaintances Miriam and Radwan have told me that there's a lot of internal problems in Tunisia where those things that we would take for granted in the States just don't occur. They just don't happen there. Picking up trash, I don't know. I mean, I didn't specifically know that, Oliver, but that doesn't. I'm not at all surprised. That's always an issue. Yeah, probably
Mm.
it's because they stopped paying the garbage men, the garbage collectors, and then in French culture they striked. They carried out a strike and refused to drive the trucks around or collect the garbage. So, but
So
yeah,
actually, from what I understand about that, real quick,
sure.
because I was asking around about like what exactly was the issue, like what's going on, and also in the last, I think maybe a few days or the last week, there's been protests with the new dump site that they found. It's around a small village that's maybe I think 15 kilometers outside of Sfax, and they have been having like their protest against dumping the trash where like close by to where they live because maybe it's a hazard or something. And they've had to bring in police to help allow the garbage trucks to go dump there. I don't know how they're going to solve it, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's a lot of drama surrounding it for sure.
Yeah, that is really interesting. So, how did you come to meet Mariam?
Mariam, yeah. So I live in a house, or I guess they call them villas here because it's like a French word. Um, Maybe on I think 12 kilometers, 13 kilometers. The way Sfax is set up, it's like a sort of like a half spider web with the downtown in the center, and then there's a shoreline on one side. So there's there's streets that go out, I think maybe 7 or 8 streets that go out in all directions. And then there's a couple rings of streets that like make it like a spider web.
Mm-hmm.
So I live on the end of like on one of the roads that goes out from the center is Tunis Road, and I live on the 12 kilometer, they say, um, 12 kilometers away from the center. So they measure it by how far away it is from the center.
Hmm.
And Mariam lives in a little apartment or studio right next door to me. So as soon as I got here, really, I met Mariam, and we've been friends ever since. Yeah, we both work at the center that I work at, Dreams in Motion.
Mm-hmm.
And so since she knows English very well
Yeah,
and
she does.
Tunisian, she's helped me learn Tunisian and, you know, learn my way around, taxis, getting through the city, etc.
Right, right. So, I think a lot of Americans would want to know, so how hard is it or how easy is it to live in Tunisia as an American?
Um, I mean, I don't think it's just different, really. So you would have to have different expectations of like depends what you expect from living, like what you expect from like your standards of life, I guess. Like what I do on a day-to-day basis would be I go just wake up, go have my breakfast, go to the taxi stop or kind of like the taxi stop. Sort of, I go to the main road. It's Tunis Road. I go straight to the center of the city, and I grab a taxi. Um, and the way they do it here is there's two ways that they have taxis. It's the one way is called compteur, which is like a counter, like French. So by like the distance it goes. And then the other way is it's called bilblasa. So it's like by place or like by seat. So four people can fit in a taxi, bilblasa. So it's a lot cheaper to do it that way versus if you do it kante, you're paying like for the whole taxi. You get me?
Hmm.
So so what pretty much everyone does here is they'll take it by seat. So you just pay for your seat. And you can definitely sometimes it's cramped in the taxi depending on what seat you get. Sometimes you'll be like smushed in between two people or my head will be kind of like having to bend down forward if it's a short taxi or something like that.
Hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I just go get a taxi, maybe takes 5-10 minutes to find one and then I go down to the center. There's the taxi stop there. And it costs about what 1.5 dinar, which is I think maybe like 50 cents, 60 cents maybe.
Wow. Wow.
So it's pretty cheap, yeah. And then I just cross for my workplace personally. Um, I get to the taxi stop and then I go by foot through the Medina, which is the old city. It's walled off. I don't know how old it is, to be honest. I would say probably at least like 600 years old. I don't know the exact age, but it's like the old city. It's like a little
Hmm.
fort or keep in the middle of the city. It's walled off, and then there's like it's kind of like sort of slums or alleyways, and there's like a market streets. There's lined streets with a lot of markets, and yeah, but it's so I just walk through there, and then maybe it's about a 10-minute walk to work. So it's pretty simple for me. I just take the taxi, walk to work, and then I do my teaching, do my stuff at the center. I wouldn't say it's very hard per se. It's just maybe adapting with the language. I'm like going to go get lunch, I need to learn how to speak to the sandwich vendors, the restaurants. When I got here it was extremely, extremely hot. So the summers here are burning, like, and it's very, very, very humid. So you'll just be sweating nonstop. Like I normally don't sweat very much, or I'm not used to having like a wet back from like my shirt is sticking to me and all that. So that was really uncomfortable, but now it's pretty cool.
Sure. 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 Yeah. Yeah. So basically, for you in Tunisia to order food or to go to stores, you would need to be able to speak either Arabic or French with the vendors. Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. They would understand me in my French.
Oh,
Um,
sure. Yeah.
they would understand. Sometimes I notice that they don't always like to respond in French, but probably if you spoke French, they would understand.
Oh,
Probably.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see. So now that you're used to eating Tunisian food, um, well, I have to ask: are there any American restaurants in Sfax since it's so global?
Okay, so to be honest with you, Sfax, I wouldn't say is extremely global.
Hmm.
It's like Tunis is much more global than Sfax. I think I've met, but I know one other American besides my boss, and there's one Canadian that I know. And besides that, I think it's almost like it's pretty much all Tunisians here. Like I was with my friend, and I don't think people really see any foreigners, especially not Americans, really here. Uh, I was with my friend, and we stopped by his family's house, and his I think nephew came out, and he was like, "Wait, are you really American?" I'm like, "Are you really from California?" I was like, "Yes, I am." Like
Where did?
he's like, "Oh, really?" He's like, it's kind of like a almost like a spectacle or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a lot of stereotypes about people from California, but why did he think why did this nephew think that you are not from California? What disqualified you from being from California?
I don't even necessarily think it was that. I think maybe he just didn't really think anyone from California would be here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would think too because, you know,
Mhm.
the lifestyles are totally different,
Mhm.
So that is very interesting. Yeah. So were you able to did the nephew like ask you questions about California? Were you able to, educate the nephew about, living in California?
Not really, actually. We were just stopping by the house for a second, so he
I
just
see.
popped out and then he said hi and then he went back in.
I see. I see. That's interesting. Have any of your students asked you any questions about the states or about living in California?
Um, I think so one question that they ask a bit is like, do you drink? Like, because drinking is a big taboo there with Muslim culture and
Right.
all that.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
So, like, do you drink beer? Like, do you drink wine? Do you drink like what do you drink? That's something that I've heard a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, mhm.
I see. I see. I see. And how do you answer that question? Do you tell them if you drink or not, or how do you respond to that?
Yeah, no, I'll just tell them, yeah, I'll drink beer like normally at home, or I tell them that I really haven't drank much since I've been here. I think I've
That's good.
had
Yeah. Yeah.
like maybe yeah, I've drank like maybe one or two nights that I've been here in 2 months. So
I see. I see. So, in other
um,
words, if you want to
mhm.
buy beer as a foreigner in Tunisia, are there places where you can like discreetly buy alcohol for yourself, or how do you find out about that?
Okay, so to be honest, no one's like really, there's not like it's not that bad to buy alcohol. You can go to the store and buy alcohol. You can buy beer or
Mm-hmm.
I mean maybe at supermarkets there will be more liquor, but like there's bars in the street and like people you can see people just drinking beer in bars and stuff. Like
Right.
right
Right.
next to the center where I work, there's a couple bars right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you have to be discreet about it. And I think the other thing is that if you are a foreigner, like no one really judges you. I think they would probably judge more like locals that drink
Probably, yeah, yeah. That's definitely the
foreigners.
case. That's definitely the case. And then, how are you? So you work all day at the school, and then how do you usually spend your time, like at night? Like, what are some of your hobbies? What are some new hobbies that you have adopted now that you're living there?
Well, I guess my lifestyle now is yeah, working and then the main thing is like since I've been here, so now I've been here what 2 months exactly almost. So first I was kind of like exploring new areas, maybe going to the gym, going to different places. I think I took a few trips. I went to Tunis. I went to the island Karkna, which is just it's a ferry ride away from Sfax. It's maybe I don't know, maybe an hour ferry. There's an island off Sfax, and then did some sightseeing. There's a old Coliseum that's close by here, actually. It's called El Gem, and it's pretty much what the Colosseum in Rome was modeled after, from what I understand. and it
Hmm.
was maybe like 20, 30 minutes outside of Sfax. And it's really an amazing place to visit, actually. Because when I went there, I thought it was going to be a lot smaller, the Coliseum, but I don't know what the like ratio and size comparison is, but I would say maybe it's like two-thirds or more the size of the Coliseum. Like it's really not, it's really very big. So that was really cool to see. I love like seeing historical buildings and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, probably the Colosseum was built by the Romans when the Romans were in Sfax, so it probably is the real thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's
no,
a.
I mean like the Colosseum in Rome. I
Mm-hmm.
guess they were like what they said, what they told me was they were jealous of this Colosseum that they had in Sfax, um, because it was so nice. So they were like, okay, we're gonna build one in Rome as well. So they copied
Ah.
that and just put one in Rome too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. I see. Yeah, well, I don't know. Probably it could have gone either way. You know, who knows? Obviously, a Tunisian will tell you that the Romans modeled their Colosseum after theirs. The Romans would say we made you adopt our Colosseum because it is the best. So who knows which way that one went? Probably it's because
Yeah.
the Romans already knew how to build a Colosseum and they put it in Sfax. That's
Oh yeah, I'm
interesting.
sure the Romans built it. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, I've been to a lot of the ruins too, all over France and well, really all over the world. I've seen several different ruins of the Roman Empire. That always
Mhm.
impresses me. I always love talking about history, and as I said, my academics are in the field of international relations, but I've always been, the history buff, loving to talk about, the Roman Empire and really what they left behind.
Mm.
Which, of course, really what they left behind is the truth that life was very similar back then, as just as similar as it really is today. And that people lived lives and did all sorts of things. It's really quite amazing. I always think that life in that time period must have been probably, if you were a very wealthy person and very healthy, uh, life would have been good. But if you were anything else, life would have been pretty bad. But, when you think about it today, we still have a lot of the world's population living in very less than desirable circumstances, and we don't even notice it. So, who knows if we're any better? Who knows? It is
True.
it is very fascinating. If you go to, have you been to France yet?
Uh, Briefly, a couple times I've been to Paris.
Okay, that good. Actually, I do speak French, but I've never been to Paris. That's a very ironic thing. But if you do go back to France, you should go back to the city of Aix-en, as in Aix-en-Provence, because in Aix-en, the Romans built a large resort there for the troops to have vacations and for the Roman elite to go to Aix-en to vacation. So there's a major Roman city there. It's quite incredible. Yeah,
Mm.
Aix-en-Provence. It's very interesting. The problem is that the provincial people, the people who live in Aix, do not seem to speak any English at all. Not even a word. So it would be hard if you don't speak French in that city. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I am learning a little bit of French at the moment too, so maybe I can say hi or something.
Maybe you can say salut, right?
Yeah, salut, bonjour.
Uh-huh. That's good. That's great. But
Hmm.
but in France, you definitely have to speak French. Many of them, but don't really speak English. But anyway, so are you planning any other trips to other countries around Africa? I mean, you're in Africa now. You're in a lot of there's a lot of interesting countries around you. Are you planning any other trips?
To be honest, I haven't planned anything to Africa. I'm planning to go to Spain, Malaga and Granada,
Mm-hmm.
for a week, at the beginning of December, because I have a friend that lives there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought about where traveling in Africa, and I don't know. I'm just very unaware of like how everything is there, and I don't know. Going as a solo traveler to there just seems, I don't know. It's like I don't know if I would feel super secure, but I guess it depends where I go to.
It does, yeah. Well, you can go to Swaziland and go to some of the tours and safaris there. That's fine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Swaziland, huh?
yeah, that's interesting. You can probably actually, if you get well, it's very funny. Of course, you can't fly to Swaziland. You have to fly to South Africa, and then you have to be driven into Swaziland. They have it's very funny. When I was in Swaziland, they have an airport in Swaziland, but nobody uses it. It's only they only do like one flight. There's only one airline and one flight that flies back and forth out of that airport, or some such story. So it is very, very, very interesting. Yeah, I would highly recommend it.
Okay, yeah.
And,
I'll have to look
so
into that.
so now, yeah, if you fly to Johannesburg, you can get a shuttle, a van to take you to, but it does
And
require going to South Africa.
and they
Yeah,
speak English there, or what language do they speak there?
it's called so their local language is called Siswati, as in
Okay,
Swazi. But yes, the
okay.
guides, some of the guides speak English better than others. Obviously, the people who work in the parks, who work in the nature parks and nature reserves, speak English perfectly. But if
Mm.
you're out, in a village, nobody, especially the children, nobody speaks English
Oh,
um,
okay.
or Arabic or anything like that. They speak no, they have their own languages. Yeah,
Mm.
they said that they speak Siswati, but the answer is in each of these countries in sub-Saharan Africa, they speak hundreds of languages. So it just depends. Yeah, there's a lot to do in your region, but good, 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 good. And so now that you're living there, what's your favorite Tunisian food?
My favorite Tunisian food. Huh. I don't know really if it's like anything super special. Probably just the fish here. Sfax is really well known for their fish. So every time I've ordered fish at a restaurant here, it's been really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what kind of fish it is. Maybe it's from the sea nearby here, probably. But
Mm-hmm.
the fish here, and then they have these like three salads that they serve with it and bread. I don't know exactly how to describe the salad. It's kind of like heaps of salsa, almost like one of them's kind of like salsa verde, and then there's one that's like diced up, like kind of like a Greek style salad,
Yeah, yeah.
and then yeah, so they have stuff like that. I just really like the fish here. Yeah.
That's really good. That's really 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 excellent. Yeah, it's probably a lot of different influences. Those salads sounds like they come from Greece or the other countries that influence Tunisia mixed with the Tunisian
Hmm.
people. So a lot of it has to do with that. And I'm sure you could find French food there too somewhere. But anyway, Oliver, have you ever been on a podcast before? Because I'm quite impressed. You came out today not even knowing who I am. I'm just a friend of Mariam, and I really appreciate you coming out today. Do you ever listen to podcasts? Have you ever thought of podcasting yourself? What do you think about that?
I've never really thought of podcasting myself. I have listened to some podcasts briefly, Rogan clips, maybe something like that. I don't really
Hmm.
listen to full podcasts. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, and and
but it's
that's
fun.
why.
I thought it would be cool. You go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. It is. I mean, that's why I try to keep my podcast to about an hour because you're very right. These famous, really great podcasters that you mentioned. Yeah, I mean, they podcast for 2 and 3 and 4 hours sometimes. And I think that's, in my opinion, that's too long. I think you lose the attention of the listener. I think people are only willing to listen to a topic for about an hour before they just start to shut down. So I think it's a very, very interesting observation that you made. Yes.
Well,
Yeah. Hmm.
I actually have a kind of a counterpoint to that. Not
Sure.
exactly, but I kind of feel like with some, it kind of depends like what your goal is with the podcast, right? Not necessarily your goal, but I mean like a general goal for anyone.
Sure.
Um, because I know that some podcasts are like specifically about a topic or specifically about centering around someone's life, right? And then some, I kind of feel like maybe the Joe Rogan podcast goes into like everyone's like complete philosophical views about anything like at all, which can definitely take a lot of time to get through and discuss. So sometimes some, I guess, conversations could definitely take a longer time
I
to
guess.
fully develop.
But I think, I don't know, I have a counterpoint to yours, which is that I think if you're really trying to dig into the philosophy, you should be
Hmm.
able to uncover philosophy within an hour. So
Okay.
that should be the power of it. If someone has a defining philosophy or life, you know, life message or perspective, it should be discoverable within an hour. But
Okay.
maybe some other people like to unfold slowly. I tend to be more direct, but I don't know. That's just me. And now, did Mariam ever tell you who I am?
Um, no, not really. I mean, she just said that you have a podcast, that you're blind, and that's pretty much it, I think. I don't even know if she mentioned that you were blind, actually. I think she was just saying, there's someone that has a podcast that do you want me to tell them that you're interested? And I was like, okay.
Cool, cool. So at this school that you're working in, Oliver, have you ever taught a student with a disability?
Um, Not yet, I don't think. No, I don't think so. No, I don't think I
Yeah.
have taught someone with a
Yeah,
disability.
because I really appreciate you for being a great teacher there in Tunisia. It's a really great thing to do in life, teaching, because there's a lot of people that really need to be educated properly, and that one of the problems in Tunisia, among many of them, is that the education system has really declined. From a couple hundred years ago, Sfax would have been one of the most would have been a much more productive and educated and much more stable place. You know, but I think it's great that you're doing that, and that's really valuable. Hmm. So, besides this communications course that they and I guess about that, like, why would the students need to take your course? What does it allow them to do? Is it a prerequisite for a university, or like how does it work?
Well, it's kind of like an additional learning course. So the way we have the English classes set up here, it's like A1 level, A2 level, B1 level, B2 level. And then for students here, if they can take the B2 level, or they could take this communication class, and we'll give them like a certificate that's like of that level. So they can take this class instead of it. Or some people just take it because they want to learn more about like pronunciation of real world scenarios for like interviewing skills, and then just um, to practice their English skills, like communication, I guess, the speaking skills.
Hmm. Well, good, good. And what are some of the topics that you focus on in your communications
Mhm.
course? Hmm.
So I've been kind of developing it as I go, because I had a framework already set up by Richard Howard, who he's been teaching the class before I came, I think sometimes. I don't really know how much they teach this class, but um, the way it was set up at the moment, or when I came, was it's like a business section, there's like a social section, there is a traveling and shopping section, and a political event, sort of like global, I don't know, politics or global issues section. So each section is kind of centered around like vocabulary, maybe learning some idioms, and then different activities centered around them. So it would be like the interview, the mock meetings, maybe I've been going to the a cafe with them doing the social section, and just speaking about doing. I'm really just playing games with them, actually, different word games and
Icebreaker,
stuff like that.
icebreakers, and things like that.
Yeah, things of
Yeah.
that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, the debates have been really popular. So to be honest, after I just finished my first. I had my first course of like students, I think it was like 8 students, they like completed the course and they all kind of gave an assessment of it. And from what I understand, something that that they would have liked to focus on more is the pronunciation side of things. And then I guess they were unimpressed with the curriculum as it stood. So that's some things that I definitely want to work on developing. And then to that, I guess related to that, I haven't gotten like a teaching certification or anything like that. So I'm planning to take a TEFL course online, TEFL,
Mm-hmm.
like teaching English as a foreign language. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
So
have. Yeah.
just, yeah, to improve my lesson planning and just overall get a better understanding for how to run a classroom setting and stuff like that.
Right, right. I think that's really important. Yeah, I went with a company called Oxford Seminars. So that's a good
Mm,
one.
okay.
Good to know of that one. But there are many ways that you could get a certificate. Yeah, yeah. So how much longer, how long are you planning on staying there in Tunisia?
Um, at the moment, I'm planning on staying till about May.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah,
what?
okay, so originally my contract here for teaching was set up as a minimum of 4 months to cover the expenses that they incur with like my flight and stuff. And uh so that would be running till I think January 15th. And the way it works here is if you don't get a residence visa or something of that like that, or residency or something like that, which I guess it takes a lot of paperwork to do this. You can't stay for longer than 4 months without, when you're leaving, you would have to pay some fine, which, to be honest, the fine isn't very much. I think it's $20, $30 per extra month you stay over. But um, since so originally my flight out of here was going to be exactly 4 months after I came. So then I wouldn't have to worry about any of this residency, which apparently it really is annoying to go through. But I'm going to be traveling to Spain in December. So every time you go out and back in, it resets the timer on the 4 months. So my then I'll have from December till I think maybe early April that I can stay in Tunisia with no issues. And then tentatively, I don't have really any plans set or anything, but I guess I'll plan to maybe travel somewhere else, take a flight somewhere, maybe Africa, maybe Germany. I have a friend there as well. Uh, to reset my timer before April, and then I'll be totally fine by May.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I've heard of this. This is very common in your industry to have to do that. It's very common. Yeah, yeah. Well, good, good. Well, in the remaining time that I have today, I'm
Mhm.
sure that you have a lot of questions, and I always love to let guests ask all of their questions, or as many as we can. So, what are some questions that you have for me that you want to know about me, about blindness, about teaching, about podcasting? Go right ahead.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So how long has this podcast been going for? How long?
It's, at this kind of format, it's been going on for about 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm.
Mm. Okay, so what was your goal initially when you started it?
Well, my goal was that I saw that there was a problem in the podcasting field and industry, which is that there are a lot of podcasts that are run and produced by blind people, but in my opinion, those blind people are not open and accepting of all guests, and that there's this whole, jumping through hoops, and it can be very, very, very difficult to be a guest on a podcast, depending on who you are and who the podcaster is. So I wanted to create the most open podcast on iTunes, or the most open channel on YouTube, where people can come from all over the world, whether they're in Tunisia or wherever they might be, and still have the privilege and opportunity of telling their story. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good goal. Yeah, I like that. Um, so I guess what is some of the biggest issues or challenges that you face? Like, I kind of want something I was wondering is with interacting with technology, I guess, with the podcast stuff and Messenger and etc. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how challenging is that not being able to see?
Well, we have voiceover, so we have a lot of software that helps us to read what's going on throughout those apps. But generally, it's the technology has gotten to a point where this whole notion of podcasting has become much, much easier. About 10 years ago, doing something like this would have been much more challenging and would have been much more intensive than it is now. Without Zoom, without an easy way to record and save the files and things like that, this would have been very difficult a long time ago. Hmm.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't really know exactly what it goes to podcasting, but I assume there's a lot of different like uploading, downloading, saving files, moving files, like a lot of different semantics and whatnot.
Right, right. Well, there's, the audio of this goes into the podcast audio software, but then the video is what's on YouTube. So more people watch than listen, but more listeners are American and more viewers or watchers are outside of the United States. So there's two different
Okay.
audiences that are consuming the same content in a different way. So it gets very interesting. And then after this recording, later on today, after I'm done with my teaching, I'm gonna send you over to my WhatsApp group for all of the guests. And Radwan is definitely, Mariam is definitely there along with Radwan, although they aren't always active in the group. But it's a really good opportunity for you because then you can talk to all of the guests and share your story with them. And they're from all over the world, everywhere. So that's a very, very interesting aspect of podcasting. It's this whole notion of being able to create a product that people can connect to, once they guest. So it's all very positive. That's the thing I notice about it is that this is always a positive activity in all of the negativity that's going on around the world. This is something that's always positive. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I think always having open conversations is always great. And it's something, well, that's why I wanted to join the podcast, really. I always like speaking and learning about people and
Hmm.
expressing myself.
Well, that's really good. That's really good. Do you have any? You know what? I just want to say I think I'm coming up on a time pinch. But I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you joining us today. Know that you
Absolutely.
are you are forever welcome here, and you're always welcome to come back. So from here, I'll say this was a great episode with you. Later today, I'll add you into the WhatsApp and always talk there. I do think WhatsApp is easier to use, by the way.
Okay.
So yeah, we can connect there. And I just want to extend my appreciation to you. Keep up your great work as a teacher over there in Tunisia. You're really helping that country. So really, God bless you for that. And just hang in there and keep enjoying the experience. All right.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You're always welcome here at Aaron's Opinion, Oliver. And have a good evening over there. Take care. All right.
Yeah. You too.
Okay. Take care, man.